My sister called me a frumpy city mom, then posted my baby's photos to impress her wealthy fiancé, so I derailed her engagement with one dinner. I'm a 22-year-old woman who's never been close with my older sister Nora, 28, and things spiraled after I announced my pregnancy last year. For context, I've been with my husband James, 24, for 6 years, married for 2, and we both have solid jobs in tech and education. We'd always planned to start a family around this time, and when we learned I was pregnant, we were thrilled. But Nora had a different take. She's always seen herself as the family's wild card, jet-setting across cities like Paris and Tokyo, switching careers every few years, graphic design one year, event planning the next, which is fine. Everyone should live their way. But when she heard about my pregnancy, she turned it into a personal attack on my choices. It started with sly remarks about how I was squandering my youth and settling for a dull life in our bustling city of Chicago. She kept saying I was only 22, with my whole life ahead to chase dreams, not diapers. Those remarks turned into outright criticism of everything about my pregnancy, me diet, my clothes, even my excitement. I didn't expect her to get it or agree, but her constant hostility was uncalled for. She made snide comments about my weight gain, saying things like, "Guess you're just letting yourself go completely," or "Some women actually stay fit while pregnant," tossing her hair as if she'd never gain an ounce. At first, I brushed it off as Nora being Nora, her usual sharp-tongued self, but the more I ignored it, the worse it got. She sent me articles about women losing themselves after motherhood, with notes like, "Hope you're ready to vanish into mom life." She forwarded memes about giving up on life after kids, each one a jab at my joy. It wasn't just body shaming, it was like she was trying to make me regret having a child, as if my choice was a personal offense to her free-spirited ideals. I also found out she was bad-mouthing me to mutual friends, saying I was throwing away my potential or she didn't get why anyone would ruin their life like that. It hurt because these were people I valued, college friends, co-workers, neighbors in our Chicago high-rise, and her words planted doubts. One friend, someone I'd known since my teens, even asked if I was ready for the massive responsibility of parenting. Her tone hesitant, like Nora's venom had seeped into her thoughts. It hit like a punch, making me question myself at a time when I was already navigating the fears of first-time motherhood. The breaking point came at my baby shower, held in a cozy Chicago loft my mom and best friend rented for the occasion. They'd planned a beautiful event, with soft lights, pastel decorations, and a cake shaped like a tiny stroller. Everything was great, until Nora showed up 3 hours late, clearly tipsy, her heels clacking loudly as she stumbled in. She spent the whole time loudly commenting on how I looked ready to burst, even though I was only 7 months pregnant. She remarked on how puffy my face was, how my dress strained at the seams, and how she couldn't believe I'd picked diapers over dreams of traveling the world like she did. I ended up crying in the bathroom, surrounded by cold tiles, while my mom tried to comfort me, rubbing my back as I sobbed. James was livid, his jaw tight, and told her to leave, his voice sharp enough to cut through the room's chatter. Nora left, yelling that we were all too sensitive, her laughter echoing down the hall. My other friends were appalled, whispering about her behavior, but Nora brushed it off. For weeks after, she'd bring up the incident, laughing over texts about how we needed to chill, blaming my hormones for my reaction, as if her cruelty was just a joke. But it wasn't just the shower. There were other small incidents I didn't confront at the time because I was too drained, my energy sapped by pregnancy and her relentless jabs. Nora once invited me to a fitness class in downtown Chicago, saying it was to help me stay in shape, but she spent the whole time making passive-aggressive remarks about how much harder it was for me now, how I used to keep up with her in spin class, but now waddled behind. I left in tears, feeling like I'd never meet her. Impossible standards of who I should be: slim, ambitious, untethered. She'd also dropped by my apartment unannounced with her friends, treating me like a sideshow, pointing out how my life was about to change, how she couldn't imagine being so tied down to a baby in a city that never sleeps. Those visits weren't about support, they were her chance to flaunt her carefree life, sipping wine while I sipped water, her friends giggling as she mocked my nursery decor. Fast forward to last month, Nora got engaged to Marcus, 30, a successful entrepreneur from a close-knit family in Boston. I'd heard bits about him from my parents' show. He came from money, owned a tech startup, was respected in his industry, and seemed perfect for Nora, at least on the surface. The engagement was sudden but not shocking, given Nora's habit of diving headfirst into relationships without much thought, always chasing the next big thing. But her behavior shifted in a way I couldn't ignore. After months of silencino calls, texts, or care about me or my son, she started reaching out regularly. It began with casual texts about the baby, asking how he was, then offers to drop off gifts at our apartment. She even bought expensive baby gear designer onesies, a high-end stroller James and I didn't ask for or need. At first, I hoped she was trying to make amends, maybe softened by her own life changes. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt staged, like she was performing for an audience, not genuinely caring. The final straw was when I saw she'd posted photos of my son on social media, taken during one of her unannounced visits to our place. I hadn't given her permission, and she never asked. She captioned them with things like, "proudest aunt ever," or "my adorable nephew," painting herself as a devoted family member, her posts racking up likes from her followers. It infuriated me because I knew the truth. This wasn't about my son or family love. It was Nora crafting a fake narrative, especially for Marcus, who valued family above all, to show she was the warm, nurturing type, not the cruel sister who'd mocked me for months. Then, Nora invited us to dinner at a sleek Chicago restaurant, billed as a casual family gathering but clearly meant for us to meet Marcus properly. My parents were already charmed by him, raving about his charm and success, and said it'd be a great chance to come together. James and I went, partly out of duty and partly curious about how Nora would act around Marcus and the family in this polished setting. The night started fine, with candlelit tables and soft jazz in the background. Nora was in full hostess mode, making sure everything was perfect, refilling wine glasses and flashing smiles. She introduced Marcus to James and me with an over-the-top warmth that felt fake, like she was playing a role she hadn't nailed, her laugh too loud, her gestures too grand. Marcus was polite, charming even, and seemed genuinely nice, but the evening felt tense, with unspoken words lingering like a storm cloud. During dinner, talk turned to family, kids, and future plans, the clink of silverware punctuating the conversation. Nora leaned into her carefully crafted story, gushing about how much she loved spending time with my son, how being an aunt had changed her life, her voice dripping with exaggerated affection. Marcus, clearly impressed, chimed in about how great it was that Nora was so close to her nephew, saying, "One thing I love about Nora is how family-focused she is. Especially with her nephew, her love for kids really stands out," his eyes warm as he looked at her. I couldn't stay quiet. My heart pounded, but I looked at Marcus and, as calmly as I could, laid out the truth. I told him how Nora treated me during my pregnancy, how she body-shamed me, mocked my choices to settle down in Chicago, and turned my baby shower, a major milestone, into a nightmare with her drunken jabs. I shared how she called me a frumpy city mom, sent cruel texts about throwing my life away for a baby, and made me feel like my joy was a mistake. The room went quiet, the air thick with tension. Nora's face drained of color, her smile gone, and for once she was speechless, her usual quick wit nowhere to be found. Marcus was stunned, his fork frozen mid-air, looking between us as he processed it. He asked to see the texts, his voice low but firm, and I handed over my phone without hesitation, letting him scroll through months of Nora's harsh words texts calling me bloated, saying I'd regret my choices, mocking my life. His expression shifted from shock to disbelief to anger, his brow furrowing as he read. Nora mumbled something about being misunderstood, her voice shaky, but it was too late. The evidence was clear, undeniable, in black and white. Marcus didn't know what to say, his face tight with emotion. He stood up abruptly, excused himself, and left the restaurant, his footsteps heavy on the polished floor. We sat in stunned silence, the other diners chatter a distant hum as he walked out. Nora, panicked, her eyes wide with fear, followed him, but not before hissing at me, "You've ruined everything." Her voice venomous but cracking. That was 4 weeks ago, and what happened next was unexpected. Nora hasn't spoken to me since, no calls, no texts, just silence, as if I'd ceased to exist. I thought she was giving me the cold shoulder, her usual tactic, but then she called out of the blue, her voice shaky, sounding vulnerable for the first time in years, nothing like the confident Nora I knew. She said Marcus ended their engagement, unable to reconcile the person she presented, a loving, family-oriented woman, with the cruelty I'd exposed. The texts, a stark contrast to her curated image. But now I'm lost, unsure what to do next. Nora hasn't reached out since that call, and I'm not sure I want her to. My parents' silence hasn't helped their staying neutral, offering no support, like they're waiting for this to blow over in our family's typical avoidant way. It's frustrating because, despite everything, I feel guilty, a knot in my stomach that won't go away. I wonder if I went too far by calling her out in front of Marcus. If I should have kept it private. Am I to blame for her engagement falling apart? But then I think of the months of hurtful comments, the passive-aggressive digs that cut deeper each time, and how she faked care just to impress someone else, using my son as a prop. I can't shake the feeling that no matter how my family downplays it, Nora was wrong, her actions cruel and deliberate. So, am I at fault for exposing her, or am I finally standing up for myself like I should have done ages ago? I wish I had the answer, but I'm still figuring it out, navigating this mess with no clear path, and could use some help to make sense of it all. Update 1. It's been days since the dinner, and the silence is deafening, louder than any argument. My parents haven't said a word about it, acting like it never happened, hoping if we stay quiet, it'll all vanish like a bad dream. I expected them to at least check on me, to ask how I'm holding up after that night, but nothing, not a call, not a text. It's like they're choosing to ignore it, believing silence will restore normalcy to our fractured family. What's eating at me are the texts from mutual friends and relatives, all saying I should reach out to Marcus and fix things. Like Nora's future is my responsibility, her happiness my burden. They care more about her relationship than the pain she caused me, as if her engagement somehow erases the months she spent tearing me down. It's maddening, their words like salt in a wound. Everyone says I need to fix this, like I'm the one who broke her relationship and should mend it, ignoring how she emotionally shredded me during one of my most vulnerable times. My pregnancy a battlefield because of her. One relative, an aunt I've always been close to, even suggested I apologize to Nora, because it's the mature thing to do, her voice dripping with judgment over the phone. I couldn't believe it. Apologize for what? For telling Marcus the truth? For exposing how she treated me, which no one else seems to care about? The hypocrisy is unreal, and it stings more coming from family I trusted. I've made it clear to them and anyone else who asks that I'm not about revenge or holding grudges for the sake of it, but this isn't about that. It's about the pain she inflicted when I was already struggling. My body and mind stretched thin by pregnancy. She turned the joy of my first child into a nightmare. Each jab a theft of moments I should have cherished. How am I supposed to forgive that? What if her stress caused me to lose the baby, a fear that haunted me every time I felt a cramp or couldn't sleep? I was depressed and anxious my whole pregnancy, dreading her next cruel remark or how she'd twist the knife deeper, her words echoing in my head at night. I can't count how many nights I cried, my pillow soaked, wondering if I was wrong for wanting this new chapter, for choosing a family with James in our cozy Chicago apartment. She stole moments I'll never get back: first kicks, ultrasound visits, the glow of expecting, and now everyone expects me to brush it off because it might affect her future, her chance at a perfect life with Marcus. I talked to my parents recently. If you can call it a talk, it was pointless, like shouting into a void. I hoped they'd see my side, acknowledge my pain, maybe even apologize for staying silent. But they played neutral again, their faces blank over coffee at their house. They acted like this was a petty sibling spat, a childish fight over toys, not a deep wound that's left me raw. I could tell by their tone, their careful words, and the way they avoided my eyes that they wanted me to be the bigger person, to forgive Nora and move on because it's the right thing in their eyes, the way our family has always smoothed things over. But I can't, and I won't, not this time. I don't think they get how much this hurt me, how it's changed me, or maybe they do and just don't care, too focused on keeping the peace. Either way, I knew I wasn't getting real support from them, no matter how much I laid bare my heart. My mom kept saying, "Family is family. You two have always clashed, but you're sisters, and sisters forgive." Her voice soft but firm, like she was reciting a rulebook. My dad just nodded, saying nothing, his silence louder than her words. It felt like they were sweeping it under the rug, like this was just another of Nora's outbursts I should ignore for the sake of harmony, for the family's image at holiday dinners. But this isn't about peace for me, it's about respect, about setting boundaries, about not letting anyone, even family, walk all over me, because we're related. They can all tell me to forgive and forget, but I can't do that now. And I don't think I should have to, not when the wounds are still fresh, still bleeding. Nora hasn't said a word since that call. her silence heavy with expectation. Part of me wonders if she's waiting for me to reach out first, like I've done before in our long history of fights, always the one to cave, to smooth things over. But this time's different. I won't bridge that gap, not after everything. If she wants to talk or fix anything, she'll have to come to me, take the first step, show she's serious. And even then, I'm not sure I'm ready to let her back in after all she's done, the trust she's shattered. So here I am, stuck in this limbo where everyone, friends, family, even strangers on social media thinks I'm the villain who ruined everything, the sister who broke Nora's perfect future. But I know the truth, the raw, ugly truth of her cruelty, and for now, that's enough to keep me grounded, to keep me moving forward. Update 2. Things have shifted since my last update, and I'm still processing it all, my head spinning like a Chicago windstorm. I never expected it to unfold like this, not in a million years. After weeks of silence from Nora and my parents' usual neutrality, their refusal to pick a side, something surprising happened. Marcus reached out. It was out of nowhere, like a bolt from the sky. James and I were grabbing lunch at a bustling Chicago cafe, the kind with exposed brick and overpriced coffee, when we ran into him. I could tell he saw us first because he hesitated, his shoulders stiff, before approaching our table. I braced for a confrontation, my stomach twisting, expecting anger or blame, but he was calm, even kind, his voice steady as he asked to talk. We stepped outside, leaving James inside with his sandwich, the city's hum around ush horns honking, pedestrians rushing. Marcus was straightforward but warm, his eyes meeting mine as he said he didn't blame me or James for what happened that night at the restaurant. He said I should feel at peace because it wasn't our fault, his words like a balm on a burn. That was a relief, since even though I knew I did the right thing exposing Nora, part of me still felt guilty, a nagging voice fueled by everyone else, friends, family thinking I ruined her future, her chance at a fairy tale life with Marcus. Hearing it from Marcus, who was directly involved, lifted a weight off my shoulders, made me feel seen for the first time in months. He said he appreciated my honesty that night, that I hadn't ruined anything, despite what Nora claimed, her accusations still ringing in my ears. Then he opened up about his own experience, his voice low, almost confessional, as we stood on the windy sidewalk. I wasn't the only one who saw Nora's harsh, judgmental side, the one that cut like a knife. Marcus had noticed cracks in their relationship for months, subtle at first but growing, and my confrontation brought it all to light, like flipping on a switch. He said Nora's behavior toward me shocked him, left him reeling, but more than that, he'd seen her criticism spill into other parts of their relationship, tainting what he thought they had. She'd become obsessed with status and wealth, caring more about his money, his connections, than their connection as a couple. She'd make offhand comments about his job, his startup's growth, and who he should network with, subtly trying to shape his life to fit her image of success, a penthouse, a certain crowd, a life that screamed prestige. Marcus wasn't blind. He knew relationships involve compromise, give and take. But he realized Nora wasn't compromising, she was controlling, molding him like clay. She'd even started critiquing him in front of friends, passing it off as playful teasing. But it was usually about his look-she's tie, not sharp enough for mistakes in her eyes. Like choosing the wrong wine at a dinner party. He felt like he was being reshaped into someone else. Someone worthy of Nora's time, her vision. And it wasn't just their engagement unraveling. Her career was falling apart too, a mirror of her personal chaos. Nora had recently been fired from her latest job, another of her ventures, as my parents call them, always framing her instability as adventure. She'd always hopped between careers marketing, freelance writing, now event planning. But this time she didn't leave by choice, she was let go. Her desk cleared out before she could argue. Marcus didn't elaborate, but he hinted her attitude, her sharp tongue, and her inability to work with others played a big role, colleagues fed up with her demands. This happened around the same time their relationship started crumbling, the stress piling up like a house of cards ready to fall. Then Nora reached out to me, her first contact since the dinner. She hadn't spoken since that night, but now she was texting, her tone completely different, no sarcasm, no digs, just fragile and desperate. Words I never thought I'd associate with her. She asked for help, saying she was lost, needed her sister, her texts almost pleading. It was jarring. So, unlike the Nora I'd come to expect, the one who spent months making me feel worthless, small, like my life was a mistake. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. Nora was always the family's golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, their pride in her travels and charm unshakable. Growing up, it felt like she could mess up, crash a car, flunk a class and still land on her feet, while I struggled to keep up, always the responsible one. Now, everything she'd built or curated to look perfect, her social media, a gallery of a flawless life, was collapsing, her engagement gone, her job lost. I could see how desperate she was to salvage something, anything, from the rubble, to claw her way back to the pedestal she'd always stood on. But then I remembered all the awful things she'd said and done, the memories sharp as glass. I remembered crying at my baby shower, locked in that loft bathroom, as my friends and family tried to comfort me because Nora turned a joyful day into another chance to tear me down, her words like daggers. I remembered the texts calling me a frumpy city mom, mocking my choice to have a family, to find happiness in a life she deemed boring, and making me feel like I was wasting my potential by choosing love over her version of success, glamorous, untethered, free. I remembered it all, the late-night tears, the self-doubt, the way she made me question my worth and any sympathy I might have had faded, replaced by a quiet resolve. I'm not ready to forgive her, not now, maybe not ever. Even if she's struggling, lost in her own chaos, it doesn't erase the months of pain she caused, the scars she left on what should have been a beautiful time. I've been thinking about what forgiveness means, turning it over in my mind like a puzzle, and I've realized it can't be forced just because someone's hurting, just because they're family. It has to be genuine, earned, and I'm nowhere near that point. Not after the betrayal, the cruelty. My parents, as expected, are still neutral, their default setting. When Nora told them her side, her voice probably trembling for effect, they didn't take a firm stance, just sympathized with her, offered vague comfort, but treated it like a minor sibling fight, a spat to be brushed aside. They keep asking if I've talked to her, if I'm ready to sort things out, their voices hopeful but tinged with expectation. I know they want me to fix it, to be the bigger person, as always, to smooth over the cracks for the sake of family dinners and holiday photos. But I'm done being the one who bends, the one who sacrifices her peace. I'm focusing on my family, James, my son, our life in Chicago, the little moments that ground me, like his tiny hand in mine. I don't have the energy for Nora's mess, and I feel no obligation to clean it up, not anymore. If she wants to fix things, she'll have to figure it out herself, take the first step, show she's more than empty words. I've spent too long putting her needs above mine, swallowing my pain to keep the peace, and I'm done, finally free to prioritize myself. After talking with Marcus, I felt something I hadn't in months. Like a weight lifted from my chest, the air easier to breathe. For so long I'd carried guilt, heavy as a stone, like I was somehow responsible for Nora and Marcus's breakup, for wrecking her perfect life, the one she'd polished for the world to see. But Marcus saying clearly that it wasn't my fault, that Nora did this to herself with her actions, gave me relief, a clarity I hadn't felt since this started. It validated what I'd known deep down but doubted under the pressure of my parents, friends, and relatives pushing me to fix things, to save Nora's future. For the first time, I saw that the guilt they piled on was baseless, their expectations unfair. It wasn't my job to repair what Nora broke, not my burden to carry. With that clarity, I decided to confront Nora once and for all, to end this chapter on my terms. I couldn't keep letting this drag on, a wound left open, and I wasn't going to let anyone, family, or not pressure me into forgiving her or fixing things for her sake. So I texted her, saying I wanted to meet in person, not to reconcile, not to hug it out, but to close this for good, to say what needed saying. I needed her to know where I stood, to hear it straight from me, no filters, no softening. When I got to Nora's apartment, a sleek high-rise in Chicago's Loop, she looked disheveled, stressed, her hair messy, eyes tired, and vulnerable for the first time in ages. A far cry from the polished Nora I knew, but I knew better than to fall for it, to let her fragility sway me. I'd seen this Nora before, the one who'd cry when things didn't go her way, tears a tool to shift blame. This was the same person who spent months dismissing my choices, making me feel like a failure for starting a family, for choosing a life she couldn't understand. She might look broken now, standing in her cluttered living room, but I wasn't letting that erase her actions, the pain she'd caused. I got straight to it, my voice steady despite the nerves. I told her I wasn't taking any blame for what happened. This was her mess, her creation, and she needed to own it. Every piece of it. She had to stop playing the victim, Stop acting like I'd sabotaged her life. I made it clear I wasn't responsible for her engagement falling apart, or her life unraveling. Her actions, her words, her cruelty caused it all, from the texts to the baby shower meltdown. I could see the shock on her face, her eyes wide, lips trembling. But I wasn't there to soften the blow, not this time. I'd been soft too long, biting my tongue to keep the peace, and I was done. I also told her if she wanted to fix things with Marcus, she needed to apologize properly, not a half-hearted sorry to save face, but a real acknowledgement of the hurt she'd caused, not just to me but to those closest to her. For a moment, I felt myself slipping into a firmer tone, almost telling her what to do, my words sharp as I pointed out her flaws. But it wasn't about control, it was about giving her a chance to salvage what she had left, to take responsibility for once. It's up to her to take it, to act on it, but at least I said my piece, laid it all bare. Then came the hardest part, the one I'd rehearsed in my head 100 times. I told her I didn't want her in my son's life for now, not until I saw real change, not just tears or promises. I needed proof she was sorry, proof she could be better, not just for Marcus or herself, but because she'd hurt those closest to her, left scars that still ached. I couldn't let her near my child, my heart, knowing she's still the person who caused me so much pain, who turned my pregnancy into a gauntlet of doubt and tears. Until she shows she's different, genuinely different, I told her it wasn't worth the risk, not to my son, not to me. After that, I had another talk with my parents, the one I'd been dreading but knew was coming. I'd waited long enough, and it was time they heard the truth too, time they stopped hiding behind neutrality. I told them I was fed up with their refusal to take a side when it was clear who was wrong, when the evidence of Nora's cruelty was undeniable. This wasn't a small sibling spat, a childish argument to laugh off. It was a major conflict, a betrayal that left me deeply hurt, my trust in family shaken. Their fence-sitting, their silence, only made it worse, letting the wound fester. I made it clear I needed their support this time, needed them to see me, to acknowledge my pain, not just Nora's drama. And if they couldn't give that support, if they couldn't choose truth over peace, I asked them to keep their distance too, to give me space to heal. It wasn't easy saying that, my voice catching as I spoke, but it needed to be said, needed to be out in the open. So here we are, weeks later, and things are still messy, a tangle of emotions and unspoken words. But I'm not carrying that guilt anymore, not letting it weigh me down like before. I'm not saying it's all resolved, that I have all the answers, or that the pain is gone. It's not. But I feel like I'm in control of my story for the first time in a long time, like I've taken the pen back. I'm setting boundaries I should have set years ago, when Nora's jabs first started, when I first let her walk over me. I'm finally putting my health, my family's peace, James, my son, our little world in Chicago first, above the drama, above the expectations. I'm not sure what comes next, if Nora will reach out, if she'll change, or if my parents will ever see my side. But for now, I'm standing firm, grounded in my truth, and that's enough.